Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Leveraging the Achieving Success in Positive Interactions, Relationships, and Environments grants to support classroom assessment scoring system implementation webinar. This webinar is hosted by the Early Education Division, EED, at the California Department of Education on October 8th, 2024, from 2:30 p.m. until 4 p.m. My name is Jade Meal, Child Development Consultant within the Early Education System Improvement Office here at EED. This webinar will walk through the Aspire Grant and Management Bulletin 23-10, which provides guidance to contractors of the requirements to phase in implementation of the class tools, as well as the removal of current requirements for contractors to complete the Environment Rating Scale ERS. Johanna will now share the link to the Management Bulletin so you can follow along with us. As always, the slide deck will be made available digitally via our webpage. However, all of the information shared in this webinar is already online in the MB itself. Next slide, please. So we've had a bit of time to welcome you. So now I'd like to introduce the others who will be supporting today's webinar. I am joined with Yvette Martin, Child Development Consultant within the Program Quality Implementation Central Office at EED, and Johanna Cabeza, Child Development Consultant within the Program Quality Implementation Central Office at EED. Beyond us, we've got a lot of EED staff behind the scenes at the ready to either answer your questions live or in the Q&A feature. But if we are unable to answer, we will take the questions back to discuss and provide an answer at a later time. As always, please use the question and answer feature on Zoom, not the chat box. I'm going to hand it over to our Early Education Division Director, Stephen Profiter, for a brief welcome.
Thank you so much, Jade, and good afternoon, everyone. We thank you for joining today's webinar centered around the Aspire Grant and class implementation. As Jade mentioned, I'm Steve Profiter. I'm the Division Director here at the Early Education Division at CDE. We are committed to supporting continuous quality improvement and responsive teacher-child interactions in all of our California state preschool programs. I think you've heard us talk about continuous quality improvement for years, and it remains at the center of kind of our improvement work. And we are so excited to be able to bring class and an Aspire system to support implementation. So we are, and as we're rolling out class implementation, we've been excited to see to see that implementation throughout the state, as we know that it's mission critical to our California state preschool programs. I'm also excited to announce that we will formally introduce our Aspire statewide and regional leads a bit later on the webinar. The Aspire leads have been working extremely hard to support class implementation, and I know they have many, many more exciting things coming down the pipeline. We are so excited to be here with our Aspire partners. And I think that's it for my time. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Jade so we can get into all this wonderful information.
Next slide, please. Thanks, Steve. So here is an outline of today's agenda. I'm sure you'll find it familiar. But first, we will give an overview of the policy and purpose, and then we will move into to discuss the implementation of the Classroom Assessment Scoring System, or CLAS, second edition pre-K to third, followed by the implementation of class environments. We will also talk about other additional class information, and then move on to the Achieving Success in Positive Interactions, Relationships, and Environments, or Aspire. And then we'll follow that up by some Aspire accomplishments. We will then end today's webinar with some questions and answers, And as an additional reminder, please use the question and answer feature on Zoom and not the chat box. So let's begin. Yvette will take us to the next section. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Jade. Okay, now let's get into policy and purpose. Next slide, please. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for joining us today. I will be providing some background information on the implementation of CLAS in California state preschool programs. Management Bulletin MB 2310 notifies and provides guidance for California state preschool programs, CSPP, on new requirements to use CLAS and class environment and changes to Title V regulations. Requirements to phase in implementation of the CLAS and class environment tool and additional environment requirements. Also, removal of current requirements for contractors to complete the ERS, or the Environment Rating Scale. As of July 1st, 2024, contractors will no longer be required to complete an ERS annually. Instead, contractors are required to implement CLAS 2nd edition, pre-K to 3rd, the class environment, and the additional requirements as specified in this MB. So this MB holds the same force as regulations until regulations are passed. Okay, to continue, at this time, the CLAS tools and data will not be used by the California Department of Education, CDE, to determine the finding during monitoring, but rather to identify where additional support is needed for continuous quality improvement in California state preschool programs, CSPP. The CLAS data should be used by CSPP programs to inform professional development, coaching, and other continuous quality improvement efforts. Contractors shall not use CLAS scores to evaluate staff competency. If violations of state or federal law are observed during a CLAS 2nd edition or class environment observation, the person observing shall continue to follow all applicable laws. Now, Johanna is going to take the next section. Johanna?
Thank you, Yvette. Now let's talk about implementation of CLAS 2nd edition, pre-K to 3rd. Next slide, please. As of July 1st, 2024, all CSPP contractors are required to use the CLAS tool. CLAS will be implemented with a graduated phase-in approach that will allow time for the state and contractors to increase observation capacity until full implementation in program year 2028-29. Beginning July 1st, 2028, all contractors are required to obtain at least one CLAS observation on each CSPP classroom per program year. Next slide, please. Earlier in the presentation, Yvette reviewed the CLAS implementation requirements, and I'm going to walk you through the current implementation timeline. We're currently on year 2, program year 2024-25, where 15% of CSPP must have an annual CLAS observation completed. Year 3, program year 25-26, 30%. Year 4, program year 26-27, 60%. Year 5, program year 2027-28, 90%. Year 6, program year 28-29 and beyond, 100%. Next slide, please. Certified class observers for CSPP are required to complete additional training beyond class certification. Second class edition observation training in the class support series include settings with dual language learners, settings with children with disabilities, and reducing bias. The purpose of this additional training requirement is to ensure California is centering diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in class implementation. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about implementation of class environment. Next slide, please. As of July 1st, 2024, CSPP contractors are no longer required to complete an ERS annually as part of the PSE and as part of the contractor monitoring review. All CSPP contractors are required to implement the class environment. Class environment has been implemented with the graduated phase-in approach, requiring any license-exempt classrooms to be phased in first. Beginning July 1st, 2028, all contractors are required to obtain at least one class environment observation on each CSPP classroom per program year. Beginning July 1st, 2028, all contractors are required to obtain at least one class environment observation on each CSPP classroom per program year. Next slide, please. Contractors. As you can see here, this is how implementation of class environment timeline will be rolled out into the CSPP classrooms. Year 2, program year 24-25, 15% of CSPPs must have an annual class environment completed. Year 3, program year 2025-26, 30%. Year 4, program year 2026-27, 60%. Year 5, program year 2027-28, 90%. Year 6, program year 2028-29, and beyond, 100%. Next slide, please. Class environment observers must have completed all the following requirements: class certification, class support series, which includes settings with dual language learners, settings with children with disabilities, reducing bias. Class environment training, which includes class environment foundations and class environments within a class observation. The purpose of this additional training requirement is to ensure California is centering diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in class environment implementation. Now Jade will present the next section.
All right. Thank you, Johanna. So now we will review some additional environment requirements. Next slide, please. Certain requirements that are included in the ERS remain necessary to support quality improvements. Therefore, contractors must meet the following requirements, which are preserved from the ERS. Contractors must provide a regularly scheduled time to nap or rest for all children enrolled in CSPP for 4 or more hours. Furthermore, in relation to napping, cots or mats must be at least 18 inches apart. Napping and rest activities must be provided in a clean and sanitary manner, and space must be conducive to resting. Next slide, please. Contractors are to ensure schedules provide a balance of structure and flexibility. The schedule must include the following each day: a variety of play activities that are both gross motor and less active play, and at least one indoor and one outdoor play period, weather permitting. Next slide, please. In addition, contractors must post written hand washing procedures in a place that is visible to children and adults. Hand washing procedures must be followed by children and adults. Provide storage space, with security provisions where staff can store their personal belongings, have space and/or policies in place to support staff for work-related tasks such as conferences and meetings, and to support staff for personal breaks. And I am now going to pass it on to Yvette. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Jade. Okay, I am going to review some additional class implementation information. Next slide, please. Okay, so for obtaining class observations, it is the contractor's responsibility to plan and meet the requirements. As contractors build capacity, they have the following options to obtain class second edition, pre-K to third, and class environment observations. Contractors can send program staff to certified class observer trainings provided through the regional leads, funded with CSPP Aspire funding. Contractors can have class second edition, pre-K to third, and/or class environment completed by a certified observer from another funding source. However, the certified observer requirements must be met unless explicitly exempt in MB 2310. And contractors can connect with their regional leads for support and finding certified class second edition, pre-K to third, and class environment observers. Next slide, please. For class documentation, contractors are required to keep the following documentation at the contractor level to be made available to the CDE as requested. Current class observer certifications for all staff employed by the contractor that have completed the class second edition, pre-K to third, and class environment observation training, and pass the certification or recertification test. All class second edition, pre-K to third, and class environment observation score sheets for each CSPP classroom or CSPP scores on an observation or scoring summary document provided by the observer that provides some context about the observation. Next slide, please. In addition, you must have all coaching and/or training documentation associated with class second edition, pre-K to third, and class environment observations, the name and agency association for all class observers that complete class second edition, pre-K to third, and class environment observations that are not employed by the CSPP contractor. Note that this information can be captured informally, such as on the score sheet or scoring summary provided at the end of the observation. Next slide, please. Class data. CSPP contractors must provide data and information requested by the regional and statewide leads funded through Aspire. For contractors operating in multiple counties, information at the county level must be provided to the appropriate regional leads. For contractors operating as an approved CSPP Family Child Care Home Education Network, FECHN, the contractor will need to collect and share their CSPP regional leads data related to the individual providers. Next slide, please. The CDE is still in the process of finalizing class second edition, pre-K to third, and class environment data reporting instructions. Once those have been finalized, the data reporting instructions will be posted on the class resource page, and contractors will be notified via the Early Education Division email distribution list. And we will share the resource page with you as well. Next slide, please. As part of the submission of the annual PSC, contractors should be ready to report on the implementation of class and class environment. This may include observation scores and any training or coaching received related to class. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jade to share a little bit more.
All right, thank you, Yvette. So now let's discuss the Achieving Success in Positive Interactions, Relationships, and Environments, or ASPIRE. Next slide, please. The Achieving Success in Positive Interactions, Relationships, and Environment ASPIRE grants, RFA, was released in the spring of 2024. And then from there, the ASPIRE leads were selected in May 2024. The ASPIRE grants includes the following grantees: 1 statewide lead and 4 regional leads, who we will introduce a little later. ASPIRE funding provides the overall coordination of class implementation across the state for Class 2nd Edition, Pre-K to 3rd, and class environment for CSPPs. Next slide, please. So now we would like to introduce our ASPIRE statewide lead, El Dorado County Office of Education. Leading the work for El Dorado County Office of Education is Elizabeth Blakemore, and she is supported by Melissa Wheelahan. Can we please have Elizabeth come off mute to say hello?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Blakemore, and I am the ASPIRE statewide lead. My responsibility as the statewide lead is to coordinate efforts across the 4 regions in collaboration with the regional leads. One of the major tasks to support class implementation throughout the state is to contract with Teachstone to support class implementation. Our collective goal is to create equitable access to resources, trainings, and to ensure coordinated data sharing and reporting. Now back to Jade. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth. So now moving on to our regional leads. Let's discuss the regional leads. So the ASPIRE regional leads have many objectives, but some major highlights include supporting contractors with class implementation and capacity building, conducting needs assessments throughout each region. As a note, needs assessments have already been completed. Using the need assessments data to develop a regional plan where the goal of each regional plan is to meet the needs of all CSPPs. Next slide, please. So first up, let's meet Region A. Region A, our northern region, supports the following counties: Butte, Del Norte, Glenn, Humboldt, Lake, Lassen, Mendocino, Modoc, Plumas, Shasta, Siskiyou, Sonoma, Tehama, and Trinity region. Region A is led by Shasta County Office of Education, supported by Rhea McFadden, and Rhea's email is rmcfadden@shastacoe.org. So now it's time for Rhea to come off mute and introduce herself to everybody. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Jade. So in Shasta County Office of Education, as the Region A lead, we conducted a needs assessment, which was a survey that was sent out by email to the Region A CSPP contractors. We received a 98% response rate, which was 51 of the 52 contractors responded. Of those 51 contractors, there were 276 sessions or individual groups of children. Within those CSPP contractors, there were 57 Class 2008 observers, 13 Class 2008 trainers, 42 class second edition pre-K to third observers, 7 class second edition pre-K to third grade trainers, and the sessions will be supported by the block grant to complete 114 observations. Thank you. Back to you, Jade. Next slide.
Thank you, Ria. So now let's meet Region B, Regional Lead. Region B is our Greater Sacramento and Bay, supporting the following counties: Alameda, Alpine, Amador, Calaveras, Colusa, Contra Costa, El Dorado, Marin, Monterey, Napa, Nevada, Placer, Sacramento, San Benito, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, San Francisco, San Joaquin, San Mateo, Sierra, Solano, Stanislaus, Sutter, Tuolumne, Yolo, and Yuba region. That was a mouthful. Regional B lead is El Dorado County Office of Education, supported by Denise Scale, and the Region B email address is aspiregion@edcoe.org. Denise, please come off mute and say hello. Next slide, please.
Never works the way you want it. Thank you very much. Okay, so based on the needs assessment collected in Region B, the data shows the current response rate, we're at 82%, and the number of contractors is 229. The number of sessions, 1,829. The number of class 2008 observers is 236. And the number of class 2008 trainers is 40. And the number of class second edition pre-K to third observers is 112. And the number of class second edition pre-K third trainers is 19. And the number of sessions being observed by the block grant is 312. Thank you very much, and I'll pass it back to Jade.
Thank you, Denise. Next slide, please. All right, next up is our Region C, Regional Lead. Region C is our Central Valley and Coast, and they support the following counties: Fresno, Kern, Kings, Madera, Merced, Mariposa, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, Tulare, and Ventura region. Region C lead is Ventura County Office of Education, supported by Alicia McFarland, and the Region C email address is aspiregonc@vcoe.org. Alicia, can you please come off mute and say hello? Next slide, please.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Jade. I am going to share what we received from respondents to our needs assessment collection in Region C. We received 90% of our respondents. Our contractors are 118. The number of sessions are 1,017. Respondents indicated that there were 170 class 2008 observers. There are 36 class 2008 trainers. The number of class second edition pre-K through third grade observers is 69. And the number of class second edition pre-K through third grade trainers is 6. We also received information that the block grant will support 139 session observations. And I will turn it back to Jade.
Thank you, Alicia. Awesome. And then lastly, rounding out our regional leads, let's introduce Region D. Region D, our Southern and High Desert, supports the following counties: Imperial, Inyo, Los Angeles, Mono, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, and San Diego region. Region D lead is San Diego County Office of Education, supported by Eunice Monroe. And Region D's email address is aspiregond@sdcoe.net. So lastly, Eunice, please come off mute. Next slide.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jade. So here is our data for Region D. Based on the needs assessment that we collected, we have an 83% response rate. We have 275 contractors in our region. We have 3,275 sessions. We have 210 Class 2008 observers with 182 Class 2008 trainers. There's a total of 60 Class Second Edition pre-K through third grade observers and 199 Class Second Edition pre-K third trainers. There are 537 sessions that will be observed through the CSPP block grant. Thank you, Jade.
All right, next slide, please. Thank you, Eunice. So one last thank you to our Aspire leads. They've been working very hard at all of the work. So now we're going to discuss some Aspire accomplishments that have happened so far. We're going to invite back our statewide lead, Elizabeth. Next slide, please.
There we go. Sorry about that, everyone. It took a little bit of time. So as of July 29th, 2024, EDCO has successfully executed a 2-year contract with Teachstone. The goal of the contract is to support class implementation across the state through, number 1, increasing class knowledge through training, building observer capacity, building trainer capacity, and supporting data management and data quality. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass it back to Jade.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So we received the needs assessment data from each region on previous slides already. We reviewed the needs assessment data from each region on previous slides already, but we wanted to highlight some important information. So each regional lead sent out and collected needs assessments in July from CSPP contractors and CSPP QRIS block grantees, as highlighted by the regional leads. The needs assessment return rate was an overall 87% at the end of August. And note, this was a required data reporting survey for CSPP contractors. Therefore, if your program has not completed the survey, you must complete it and return it to your regional lead as soon as possible. Next slide, please. The start of class capacity building in California includes facilitating the transition of 60 current trainers from the Class 2008 tool to the Class Second Edition pre-K to third tool. This began at the end of September. Scheduling observer transition trainings. So this allows current Class 2008 certified observers to transition to the class second edition pre-K to third tool. And then also scheduling new measurement trainer training. This training is designed for new trainers to be able to deliver 4 various Teachstone trainings.
And I can
Next
pick
slide.
it up from here, Jake. Thank you. Next
Uh-huh.
slide. I had a technical issue. I appreciate the support. And lastly, let's discuss what's to come with Aspire. We are planning a virtual kickoff event for November. More information on the date and how to register is coming soon. This event is designed for administrators, site leaders, educators, and coaches, offering an in-depth introduction to the strengths of class. Participants will have the opportunity to join breakout sessions and learn more about class and the class environment. I am passing it back to Jade. Next slide, please.
Thank you again, Elizabeth. So I hope it was helpful for everyone to be able to virtually meet the statewide and regional leads and learn more about what Aspire is currently doing to support capacity building throughout the state. The CDE has developed a class resources webpage for CSPP contractors, which will include contact information for CSPP regional and statewide class leads, along with some frequently asked questions. You are able to access it using the QR code here or through the webpage. Johanna will drop that in the chat right now, but the webpage is https://forward/www.cde.ca/ASP. Whew. Next slide, please. So before we review some of the most common questions within the question and answer feature, we just recently posted the class frequently asked questions on the class resource page. We will drop them in the chat now. Please review these, as many questions that we are fielding in the question and answer feature can be found here. So I see that Johanna has added that to the chat. So now I'm going to look through the question and answer feature to answer some of these questions live. You can just give me a few minutes to read through some of them and look through to see what commonalities we have within the chats. All right, so I see one question that says, to clarify, if an agency has only one CSPP classroom, they will need to assess 100%, and that is correct. Some more information around this can be found in the management bulletin and the frequently asked questions. And another common question that we have been seeing is, Danielle, maybe you could come off of mute and support, but is this only for pre-K age group? Infant and toddler groups will continue to use ERS, correct? Danielle, are you able to support with that question?
Yeah, no problem, Jade. As far as state preschool classrooms, all state preschool classrooms, regardless of the age of children served in the state preschool classroom, are going to use the class second edition pre-K to third. And that includes in family childcare homes also. So if you operate a fetch-in and you have family childcare homes, which are typically mixed age settings, you are also going to use the class second edition pre-K to third.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. And then another question that we have seen in the chat is, For fashion observations, which age group assessments do we use? So Danielle, do you want to support with that question as well, please?
No problem, Jade. Same answer as before. If we're using anywhere with multi-age settings, as long as it's a state preschool classroom, we are going to use second edition pre-K to third.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. Just trying to read a little bit more through these. Okay, so one question is, what will substantial portion of the day look like now for our programs? What will be the new requirements? And just to talk about a little bit more, the substantial portion of the day is part of the ECRS assessments. So for CSPP, we are no longer using the ECRS assessment tool. And then looking through some more. A question was asked around Aspire. So where can we apply to receive Aspire funds to purchase and sign up for class trainings? So as we learned in this webinar, the Aspire grant was distributed to the 4 regional leads and the 1 statewide lead. So you can directly reach out to your regional lead to sign up for class trainings. If you weren't able to capture their information from this webinar, you can find all of their contact information on the class resource page, and they can help support you in the class trainings. All right, looking at a few more. Oh, Danielle, thank you. Somebody wants to go back to the Regency data slide. Olivia, can we please go backwards? Perfect. So here is Region C, regional lead information. We can leave that up for a few more minutes. All right. Can we move it up one more slide? Perfect. So just show the data for Region C. Awesome. I'm also seeing one more question, and the question is, my certified class second ed trainer took the preschool test, not the P3. The Teachstone rep said this is aligned with state requirements because at the time of the MB, they only offered the P3 test. Is this correct? Is my trainer certified to meet the state requirements with the preschool test? So the answer to this is yes, this is correct. The pre-K only test meets the requirements for CSPP. I'm not sure if Yvette or Danielle wants to come off mute to expand a little bit, but the answer to that question is yes.
Sure, I can help out, Jade. Just to elaborate a little bit, this is something that, as was said, not in the management bulletin when it was originally written because this wasn't an option. However, this is something that just came out in the new FAQs for class. So if you look on the FAQ webpage, it is question number 16 that will give you this information that this the pre-K only test does meet the requirements for the certified observer if they take just that test instead of the pre-K to third.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. Seeing another question that says, will the Aspire funding also include training for certification on class environments? And yes, it will. So just follow up with your regional lead for support around certification on class environments. All right, I think we're gonna back, oh, perfect. Olivia has backed it up to Region B, so you can grab their contact information if need be. Awesome. I see somebody asking what the ASPIRE acronym is, and it is the Achieving Success in Positive Interactions, Relationships, and Environments. ASPIRE is a little bit easier to say. Another question around ECHRS. So since we are not using ECHRS and we adhere to the substantial portion of the day to make a classroom schedule, I wanted to know if we can modify our schedules, or are we still guided by ECHRS for SPD? The answer to that is CSPP is no longer using ECHRS, so the requirements associated with it are no longer required for CSPP contractors. Awesome. And there's a question that is, what is the difference between an observer and a trainer? Great question. So a certified observer can actually complete all of the requirements mentioned. So they're able to observe and score a CSPP classroom using the Class 2nd Edition Pre-K tool, while a trainer has completed all the requirements to train. So they will be able to help build capacity and carry out 4 specific trainings through Teachstone. Can you explain more about the percents? Yes, Danielle, can you help support with this one, please?
Sure, thanks, Jade. So jumping into percents, so things to note around percentages. So as we phase in to full implementation of class, there will be different levels. The first year is only 15% of your classrooms across your program. So something really specific to note about that, it is across your program, not across your site. So that might mean that in some programs, not every site has a classroom using class this first year. It might mean that depending on the plan that the program initiates, it could be that you start with one site and you do all state preschool classrooms at that site, and then move to your next site and next site and next site. So depending on the plan that the contractor has developed, that might look a little different across programs, and that's okay. This is also not per county, again, per program. So the entire state preschool contract. And then we're always going to make sure that you're meeting at least the 15 or 30 or 60 or 90%. So if, for example, if you're a 1 classroom, that means you are going to be at 100% the first year, because you have to at least get 15%. And the only way to do that is to have the 1 classroom observed. For example, if you have a 2 classroom site, having 1 classroom observed would be 50% of your classrooms. So you would just have 1 classroom observed for this year and next year, and you would still be fine. But then the 3rd year, where the 60% is required, you would then need to have both classrooms observed to be able to meet at least the 60%. Hopefully that explains a little bit and gives a little more context around the percentages and what do you do if it's not exactly a whole classroom, or the percentages don't always make exact numbers or full numbers. Thanks, Jade.
Awesome, Danielle. Thanks so much. Just a little bit more clarification around the ASPIRE funds. So just clarifying that the funds or the grants, it has already been distributed to our statewide and 4 regional leads. So they are who is engaged in the ASPIRE work. So again, you can reach out to them for all of your questions around class. Let's see. Looking through some more questions. If you haven't received the needs assessments information from your regional leads, we're finding that sometimes people's emails are kind of blocking the regional leads email addresses. So if you have not received any emails regarding the needs assessment, please feel free to reach out to the regional needs. I'm sorry, to your regional leads so they can get connected with you that way. I see one question that says, why aren't the regional leads sharing information? Getting them to respond to emails has been a bit difficult. Danielle, do you want to come off mute to help support that?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's what I will share with all of our contractors. It is so amazing that we have regional leads here to support in individual regions because they really are on the ground. They know what is needed. They know what is there and what's available. So they are working really individually in their regions to figure out how to best support CSPP contractors as a whole. So what that means is they are going through all of those needs assessments. As a reminder, if you haven't submitted your needs assessment, you should do so because one, it's a requirement of state preschool, as the management bulletin said. But number two, this is the information that the regional leads are using to determine like what what trainings to offer contractors, what contractors need to help get started and to phase in implementation. So please, please, please make sure you're sending those in if you haven't already. And then with that being said, Aspire just really got started up. So we have to recognize that there is some phase in time, right? Like it's going to take some money to get training set up, people to do them. I know a lot of regions, most of them, if not all, have already started trainings already. So if you haven't seen any emails or you haven't been able to, or if your regional lead hasn't connected with you, please reach out to them because just as a reminder, there is 650-ish state preschool contractors and 4 regional leads. So we want to make sure that if you feel like you need some support, please reach out to them. Also noting that, yes, they are here to support you and yes, they are here to do that. But every contractor has a different plan. So the reason the regional leads are there, if you need them, some contractors don't need them. If some contractors are already implementing class at 100%. So the regional leads are there for you to reach out if you need them, ask them for help with observations, trainings, etc. But they don't know what they don't know. So they don't know if you are a contractor that is already able to do 100% of your observations by yourself. So if you need that support, please, please, please reach out to your regional leads. If you need their contact information, please look at our CDE class resources page. It has the regional leads on there. You can email in those inboxes. They are here to support you. They have been very responsive. And if you haven't been able to get through to them for whatever reason, maybe misspelling of the email or something like that, reach out to your PQI consultant if you are still having trouble and they can help connect you because PQI is working with our regional leads to make sure that contractors have the support they need. So once again, thank you to our amazing 4 regional leads. You guys are awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danielle. And Olivia, can we just go through all of the regional leads information one more time, just so we can make sure everybody's able to capture those emails, starting with Region A, up at Shasta. Maybe move on to Region B, El Dorado County. Perfect. Region C. And some hearts for Region C. And then lastly, Region D. Perfect. All right. So there are some questions in the Q&A that we will take back and review a little bit more for some future FAQs. Thank you all for your questions. Next slide, please. So we thank you for your time and participation today. Please be on the lookout for a listserv distribution email with dates and times for follow-up office hours. If you have any remaining questions around Aspire or class implementation, we encourage you to attend those. Hope to see you there. Again, thanks. We appreciate all of your time and support and have a great rest of your day.